The privilege, that is, the honor, of being present to another person in what I would call holy listening is, as Alan has told us already, one of the most valuable forms of ministry we can do. And although I and Sean are professional ministers and we've had a lot of training, it is something that many members of the congregation, both on the volunteer teams and not, can learn how to do. So we ask ourselves, what is the benefit of this holy listening? Well, there are very few situations in life when we may feel deeply listened to. Many well-meaning people, when you relate a challenge to them, will try to offer advice or guidance. Or they might tell you about a time in their life when something similar happened to them. This can be very interesting and very meaningful in conversations between friends. And spiritual care or pastoral care is really more about deeply listening and asking open-ended questions. More on those in a minute. You probably noticed that I move back and forth between calling this work spiritual care and pastoral care. You will hear both of those terms in our congregation and others, and people do tend to prefer one or the other. Pastoral care is a term that came out of our Christian heritage. Some people love this term, and others do not, depending on their own background and their personal associations with the words. These days, when many people refer to themselves as spiritual but not religious, the term spiritual care may be more accessible to many people, and it is a term that's being adopted more and more in hospitals and other settings. When I think of spiritual care, I see it as attending to the inner life of the person, the soul level, the center of the human being that is more than the externals. That is more than whatever we might show on the outside. In this form of care, we do our best to create a safe container in which the person can reflect on what is deeply important to them, and we do that through our presence and our listening. We do that by asking thoughtful and open-ended questions, and especially we do that without any agenda of our own. Many times, people like us are drawn into service-oriented roles because we really do want to help people. This desire, which is a good desire, can lead us into ordained ministry and lay ministry and pastoral and spiritual care and many other roles too. Being present to another person's pain and being sensitive and compassionate people, there may be a very strong part of us that wants to make that pain go away. But an essential part of spiritual care, and perhaps the most important part of all, is the awareness that we do not have the power to solve another person's problems, but that they do when they are in touch with their own deepest wisdom. Our role is to be fully present, to honor their personhood, and to open up a space for healing energies in their life, however they may understand those forms of healing energy. Pastoral or spiritual care is not about solving the problems of people who come to us. This is true whether the listener is an ordained minister or a volunteer member of a spiritual care team. Our role is not to take on practical challenges, offer creative solutions to problems, tell people what they should or shouldn't do, or offer advice of any kind. Of course, it is worth acknowledging that every spiritual care provider has likely lapsed into well-meaning problem-solving mode at times. and I am the first to stand up and say that I have and do. Our task, when that happens, is to mindfully notice what has happened, to reframe, let go of our agenda, and return again in love. Return again to holy listening. Our role is to listen deeply, to bear witness, to reflect back what an individual shares with us in the safe container of spiritual care. When this works well, we assist people in listening deeply to themselves, and through that listening, to find pathways toward what will be life-giving for them in their particular circumstances. In some ways, the poet Rainer Maria Rilke was a spiritual care provider when he spoke to a young poet in words that became a well-loved book. Rilke didn't give the young man the critique and the career advice that he was asking for. Instead, he encouraged the young poet to listen to his own soul. He didn't take on the problem, which wasn't really a problem, of why the man hadn't yet found success as a professional poet. Rilke could have gotten hooked on those essentials. After all, he was deeply invested and interested in the poetry world, and he knew a lot about it. Instead, he encouraged the young man to go deeper, to seek out and sit with the questions that would lead him not necessarily to external success, but to internal well-being. No matter what particular difficulties we face, the deep listening of spiritual care invites the wisdom that can come from the inner teacher or the divine, however you might experience that in your life. When you're looking for immediate practical solutions, you will likely be very well served by psychotherapists and social workers and life coaches and others. Spiritual care is something different. It's an invitation to sit in the mystery, to sit together in the mystery, asking questions such as, what is coming up for you as you sit with this? And what are you drawing on as you face this challenge? Welcoming the person's spiritual and religious outlook, we might encourage them to connect their experiences to a source of larger meaning. We might ask questions such as, where are you sensing the sacred in your life right now? What could be the gift in this experience? Or do you feel there's some calling in this for you? Now, for many, if not most of us, it is much more comfortable to try to solve problems than it is to sit in the mystery. This is true for people who both give and receive spiritual and pastoral care. In our complex and challenging lives, we of course look to find ways to solve problems and meet our challenges in practical ways. As a minister, it is always my great privilege to accompany you as you do that. But enduring wisdom and abiding well-being do not come only from the solving of temporary problems. They emerge, and very gradually, from inner work. As a minister, I try to crack open a door to the depths of wisdom that link each of us to our ancestors and to the entire cosmos, to the divine nature within each one of us that can guide us toward our best choices. When we open up to that inner nature, when we engage with its wisdom, it will move us in the directions that life needs us to go. We can trust those energies, but we must make space for them. That is what spiritual care can do at its best. And when we provide spiritual care, when we attempt to, whether we are ministers or lay people, we must ensure that we ourselves are doing that inner work, that we ourselves are nurturing our personal connection with the mystery, with the sacred, with the higher power of our understanding, that we are engaging as much as we can, as regularly as we can, in spiritual practice, such as meditation, being in nature in a contemplative way, or prayer in whatever form that may take. We do this to open our hearts, our souls, to the deepest calls of life. This connection that we nurture and that we need to continue to nurture may allow us to sit with others who are wrestling with the significant challenges that come their way, to be present to them with as little anxiety as possible. We are living in a difficult world, and it is only from our own wholeness and healing that we can encourage and facilitate well-being in others. When we listen from a place of non-anxious presence, unconditional love, and the acceptance of what is, we invite others to listen to their own inner voice in the same loving way. Thank you so very much for listening.